All right, everybody, we're going to go ahead and get started with the second session of panels. Welcome and thank you for coming. During the second of the sustainability panels, we'll be talking about sustainability projects that help the bottom line, hence the title, Money Does Grow on Trees. To guide us through this conversation, we have Michelle Nolan from Duke Law. She joined the Duke Law faculty in June 2008 as a supervising attorney and senior lecturing fellow for the Environmental Law and Policy Clinic. She also teaches a course in food and agricultural law and policy. So to guide us through the rest of this session, here's Michelle.
Hi, thanks very much for being here. I think this is a really exciting topic. And as if it's not, I guess, obvious by the fact that I teach environmental law, I think a lot and write a lot and use the guide of sustainability in selecting cases for the projects that students within the Environmental Law and Policy Clinic work on. And so I think a lot about what the different legal tools are that are available for promoting concepts of sustainability, thinking about the mandate of the Clean Water Act, for example, to restore and maintain the physical and biological and chemical integrity of the nation's waters, looking at different types of land use practices for resource extraction around forestry or sustainable fisheries, looking at tools for reaching out to consumers and educating them through the act of labeling or other types of materials that can be made available to consumers and have consumers in the position of being able to hold companies accountable and be able to use their money as an expression of their own values. Thinking about tax incentives, both the creation of tax incentives that can promote sustainability and also the elimination of certain subsidies that do a very poor job of stewarding our nation's resources. As a professor of environmental law and a teacher of the next generation of environmental leaders, and as the mother of children who were born on 2 different continents, I really feel strongly that sustainability matters, and more than just a label or a corporate report of compliance with basic environmental laws. But it's really an aspiration, something that is aspirational for companies and for society to do better, for improving the prospects for the future, and for thinking about those in both an economic and environmental context, but also a social context. So with that framework in mind, I'd like to introduce the speakers that we have with us today. I'll be asking a few initial questions just to get the ball rolling, and then would really welcome lots of audience participation and questions for the individual panelists. So we have here Lisa Moeller from Mount Olive Pickles here in North Carolina. She is, let me get the title right, the director or the environmental quality control supervisor working on the company's waste management protocols. We have Nikki Rodoni with Gills Onions out in California. She is the creator of the sustainability department for the organization, for the company. And Wood Turner from Stonyfield, who's a native son of North Carolina and a Duke graduate as well. So I would like to welcome all of you, and then I think each of the panelists will do a brief introduction and orientation to the programs that they're initiating and supervising within their respective companies.
I'll start off. My name is Lisa. We were writing in this. I'd like to thank Michelle and Jen for hosting this session and all of you for participating. We were writing in this.
Are we good now? Oh, there we go. I wanted to thank Jen and Michelle for hosting this session, for all of you participating in this part of the conference. We were writing in this morning, and we were listening to Jimmy Buffett on the radio. And one of the chorus lines was, we need risk takers, we need people that care. And I think in this room we have risk takers and we have people that care. And hopefully from this session we'll have more ideas on how we can take some of our ideas out into our communities, out into our businesses, and make a difference. My grandmother was born in a sod house in Nebraska. She used to save the wax paper out of Rice Krispie boxes. My father wouldn't allow us to wash dishes because he was worried we were going to waste water. When I was growing up, I lived in a house on a cliff over just outside of San Francisco Bay. And when I was 8 and 9 years old, I would love to look at the water, and it looked different every day of the year, but I loved it especially in the fall because in the fall you could watch the bait fish come into the bay. You could see huge flocks of birds feeding on the bait fish, and behind them were the striped bass. And by the time I was 15 or 16 years old, you didn't see this any longer. When I was 12, 13 years old, there was an island 32 miles off the coast, the Farallon Islands, and you could see the Japanese and Russian trawlers within the area between the coastland and these islands. So changes have taken place, and when I was thinking about what I wanted to say at this conference and maybe what kind of impact I wanted to make, it's that in the short time I've been on this planet, what I consider normal is only normal for one time and one space. And as I travel and visit other places through Mount Olive Pickle Company, it's interesting to see all the changes that are taking place quickly and the different ways of doing things. I'm here today to represent Mount Olive Pickle Company. Mount Olive Pickle Company can be considered a traditional, more mainstream company. We've been in existence since 1926. We have one plant, it's here in North Carolina, and it produces pickles, pickled cucumbers, and pepper products. When the company was started in 1926, it basically started as a sustainability project. In the early 1920s, they were growing a lot of cucumbers around Mount Olive, and they didn't have markets set up to sell them. There was a Lebanese immigrant in Mount Olive. His name was Shikari Bador, and he realized that maybe they could salvage these cucumbers by acquiring some land next to the railroad tracks and putting in tank yard space. This would preserve the cucumbers so that they could be packed and sold. In 1926, they produced 5,000 cases in the entire year. And this last year, in 2012, the company produced over 100 million cases of product. So in upping the volumes each year, we have challenges. Between 2007 and 2012, we increased our production by 35%. When the economy wasn't doing so well, pickles were doing well. But we had regulations on us from the state of North Carolina. We had limits of 400,000 gallons of water a day that we could use. We knew that we couldn't increase production and keep doing things the same way that we were. So we initiated water programs where we tracked where we were using our water, and through those numbers, we learned how to better educate our employees and make restrictions. We were able to reduce our water usage per case from 21 gallons per case just in 2007 to 17 gallons per case last year. So we were able to increase production and stay within our limits. Now, talk is about the value, and sometimes it's hard to put a distinct value on every project. This project allowed us to increase production at this single facility to keep 500 people employed on 2 shifts year-round without having to construct another plant. The project was so successful that it opened our ideas into other things that we could look at to become more sustainable. And one of the things was recycling and reuse. And I brought a little prop here. When we were looking at what we could recycle, we took the simple things out of the waste stream. We recycled the aluminum cans, the plastic, the cardboard. And when we started to do that, and we looked what was left behind in the trash dumpsters, we were amazed at how much strapping material. And last year, to give you an example, we buy a lot of our products in bulk. And in bulk, they usually come wrapped in this kind of thin plastic strapping. Last year alone, we collected and recycled 42 tons of strapping from the plant. We get paid $100 a ton, but in addition to that savings, we're not putting it in the landfill. We're not paying for the cost to dispose of it in the landfill. And it opened our eyes to all the opportunities that we have in the plant. And I think for me, one of the best things that has come out of this project is when you give a value to a gallon of water, or when you give a value to a piece of strapping, you give a value to everything else. And when corporations grow, when we started out and we were small and everybody knew each other, the communication was good between groups. When companies get to the size of 500 people, then it becomes compartmentalized. And there's very few opportunities to really cross all those different lines. But safety is one and sustainability is another one. And with this song of Jimmy Buffett, we need people who care. People do care. Right? And it's a process of educating and making it simple to make changes. So I'm excited to be here with Nikki and Wood and pass ideas that we've come upon. I've been with the company 25 years, so it's 25 years in learning the simple things that I've learned. But one thing I've found that goes along with the passion of people that are in sustainability is that they are willing to share and raise the bar, and it's a way to ward off complacency and inertia. So thank you.
Hello? Okay, great. My name is Nikki Rodoni, and for those of you that didn't hear my presentation this morning, I am the Director of Sustainability for Gills Onions, one of the nation's largest onion processors, and for Rio Farms, one of the largest growers of row crops in the West. And a little bit of history about our company. We started back in 1983, Gills Onions did, with 14 employees and very seasonal to fast forward today, we're one of the nation's largest. We have over 400 employees, and we peel and process over 1 million pounds of onions on a daily basis. I started the program by accident in 2007, being in the marketing department. Our sustainability was largely started to customer surveys. I quickly found out that we were doing a really good job at the very beginning and had always incorporated sustainability aspects into our operation. We never talked about it. We never formalized it. We never set a baseline. And so I love numbers, and I think it was the REI representative from the last panel who loves to collect that data, and I'm the same way. And it drives me and everybody else crazy, but we came up with some great results, and we kind of painted a picture for where we were at and where we can improve moving forward. And the momentum kept going, and like Lisa says, you learn from other people, and I learned from the high ambitious goals that were set by other companies within and outside of our industry, and took the ball rolling. Now we've set the example for other companies to follow. Set a really good comprehensive what we've done at the processing level. We became members of the climate registry. We collect and report our emissions inventory. We've won numerous awards. We've hit a 99.6% diversion rate at our processing plant. What we discovered in our waste streams, because we're an onion processing facility, is that we use 66 boxes of Kleenex on a daily basis because everybody cries. And we still do that. It's painful walking into that processing facility. It takes about 15 minutes for everybody to acclimate. But the owners of the company, they supported me by hiring me and hiring 2 other master students. We've worked collectively with the Bren School of Environmental Science and Management on 2 group master's projects. That one was a zero waste initiative and a pathway to zero waste, and the other was understanding our environmental impact in 3 different growing regions. And these students came into an operation that allowed them the opportunity to see every part of our business. And what we came away with was a successful analysis of who we are, and they came away with how a real business works and how to develop these programs. So working with the students that are very passionate has been, I think, the word used over and over today. It's a lot of passion. Sustainability was never my background, but I have a passion for it, and took the company to where it is today, along with other help. So that's a little bit about who Gills Onions is, and I'm sure we'll have more questions as we go along the way.
Thanks. I'm Wood Turner. I lead sustainability innovation at Stonyfield Farm. For those of you who don't know Stonyfield, I hope most of you do. We're the largest maker of organic yogurt in the country, actually in the world too, with sales approaching about $400 million annually. People ask me sometimes about my title and why it's sustainability innovation and not just sustainability or innovation. And I think our perspective at our company is that in the 21st century, if you are innovation oriented as a company, if you are innovating with your products, with your processes, with your people, you have to be focused on sustainability at the same time in an era of significant resource scarcity, issues that I don't have to go into with all of you. We need to be aligning these two things. We need to be innovating at the same time that we're thinking about sustainability as businesses. Michelle mentioned that I am from North Carolina. I am. I grew up about 2 hours from here in a town called Kinston, and it's not a place that I think of as being kind of a hotbed for sustainability. People say, how did you come from there and end up doing what you're doing? I lived in D.C. working on environmental policy for a while. I lived in San Francisco doing more of the same. I'm trained as an urban and environmental planner. I lived in the Pacific Northwest in Seattle for about 12 years before I moved to New England to take on this role at Stonyfield. But I will say I have some friends in the audience here from Kinston today who run a great restaurant, a great farm-to-table restaurant in Kinston called Chef and the Farmer. So if you ever are looking for a place to eat outside of the Triangle, some of the best sort of agricultural sustainability thinking is happening back where I grew up. So thanks for being here, guys. Back to Stonyfield. So Stonyfield started in 1983. This is our 30th year. As our co-founder likes to talk about, our co-founder Gary Hirschberg says he founded the company with 7 cows in a leaky barn, no supply, no demand, a big idea that he wanted to prove that he could create a profitable business that would still contribute to the planet in a positive way, that could still save the planet essentially. And 30 years later, I think the model that he set out to create is something that many companies around the world are now aspiring to be a part of. They recognize that that's a meaningful business model, and that this idea that any company that's creating waste is actually not creating as much value as they might create for the company, for consumers, for customers. Waste equals dollars, and if you can avoid creating that waste in the first place, you affect your financial results in incredible ways. And I'll tell you in a second sort of how that manifests itself in what I do. But for years, the company was focused on this mission, this idea, this mission of sustainability, and it did everything under the sun. It was building real consumer loyalty around this idea. This sort of small niche group of people that believed in that concept were rewarding the company over and over again, and we were growing, in leaps and bounds for years. But we're doing sort of everything under the sun: a little bit of packaging here, supply chain work here, transportation here, energy conservation here. We didn't really have a really good sense of sort of whether we were actually addressing the things that were most material to the business. And that's when, about 20 years ago, we just got incredibly focused on measuring our impact. And anybody on this panel will tell you that you cannot do anything related to sustainability unless you actually know what you're trying to know the impact that you're trying to have, know what you're trying to reduce from, understand what you're using today and where you might aspire, what you're using or creating today and where you may aspire to go in the future. So we got just laser focused on what the numbers were, and really recognized that we had hotspots in our business, and they're not incredibly eye-opening hotspots, but they helped us realize the big areas of focus, and also create a hierarchy among those different activities for where we should be focused. So in 2006, we started a program called our Mission Action Program, and it's a cross-functional group of teams that tackle those hotspots. And so there's 9 teams that focus on facility greenhouse gas emissions, or facility energy use, water, waste in our zero waste program, green chemistry, transportation, packaging, milk impacts, yogurt company, milk is huge, and non-milk ingredient impacts. And then we have another team that's called our Stonyfield Walking Our Talk, our employee engagement team, that's focused on the employee's impact at work, at home, in the commute to and from work. And when we started doing enterprise carbon footprinting of our business, we realized very quickly where we needed to be focused. 52% of our carbon footprint is on the farm in milk production. Maybe no surprise to all of you, but I think it was eye-opening to us as a consumer packaged goods company that it wasn't packaging. it wasn't the yogurt cups. It was on the farm. And surprisingly, a much smaller part of our impact, which will be surprising to those of you who are consumers of our product or any yogurt product, is that only 2% of the overall carbon footprint of our company is in the end of life. It has anything to do with whether the consumer recycles the cup, throws the cup away. Not to say we're not interested in recycling just like everybody else, but it helped us realize that our focus shouldn't be on the day-to-day focus of our business shouldn't be on the consumer's end of life, but should be on more upstream impacts. And so over time, since we launched this cross-functional program that really touches an incredible number of people in the company who would tell me over and over again that they don't believe they have environmental jobs. I'll turn around and say everybody who works in this company has an environmental job. We don't have a green team. We are a green team. But they still claim they don't have that in their job description. We've been able to avoid incredible costs in our business by focusing on each of those areas. This number may seem small to some of you who work for bigger companies, but for us, $24.3 million in cost avoidance over a 6 or 7 year period is an incredible amount of money. Now, that's not to say that I get all that money back, that all of a sudden that means our sustainability budget is gigantic. It means we put that money back into our products, we put it back into our employees, we put it back into our business in other ways. But it really does help tell a story inside our business that being focused on reducing waste, not focused on paying to get rid of waste, is an incredibly important way to create business value. Some examples of some of the things that we've done. We have an anaerobic digester for wastewater treatment at our facility that reduces our greenhouse gas emissions by 30% over aerobic digestion and other means of wastewater treatment. It reduces our operating costs by 50% over more traditional means, and the incremental cost of actually spending more on that anaerobic digester versus more traditional means of wastewater treatment paid for itself in less than 2 years. Great example that we now see people coming to our facility from all over the world who want to do the same thing. We've been laser focused on reducing the plastic that we use in our cups over the years, and have been able to make our packaging more efficient every year, and have saved about $6 million doing that. Just by lightweighting and down gauging our packaging. We have been focused on optimizing our business for rail transportation, which may come as a shock to some of you who think about, we have a perishable product, how can you use rail and the inefficiencies of rail necessarily to do that well? We've been able to prove that you can, and in the process have been able to avoid $14 million in costs, because trains are 11 times more fuel efficient than trucks. So we're looking at all of these different opportunities and saying, if we just change the way we think about how we're moving that material or handling that material, what are the benefits that are going to accrue to the company over time? And then from a waste perspective, when we started our mission action program, we were taking away 6 dumpster loads of trash from our plant every week. We now only take 1 load of trash every week. So we've saved $1 million just in avoiding hauling costs of trash. I mean, in that period of time. So it's pretty exciting for us. But I will say that when you think about cost avoidance in a business like any of ours, there's also a longer tail to some of these issues. I mean, we can look at all the ways that in a week or a month or a year we can reduce the costs or avoid the costs in our business. But there are other ways to sort of think more innovatively about about how we manage our supply chain, how we shorten our supply chain. And I'm working on a project right now with our banana growers in Costa Rica that's going to give our banana growers an opportunity to be more involved in actually taking the banana itself and processing it themselves into the puree that we can then use in our yogurt in the United States. That means they don't have to use a contract processor in between them and us. They can increase their margin. They can actually take more. They benefit from an improved quality of life, an increased margin, and a growing business. And we have a closer connection, a better relationship to that grower, and frankly, a more secure supply chain. So I think some of these things feel like nickels and dimes. They feel like real money that we can all sort of count and talk to our CFOs every day about near-term benefits. But there's some other things that are going to accrue to our business, other benefits that are going to accrue to our business over time that are less tangible to measure today. But as we continue to sort of engage in this work over time, it's going to reap benefits to our business. So looking forward to talking with you more about some of your interests, and thanks for having me.
So thanks, everyone. I just want to start the conversation off with a question about, as you were referring to, supply chains. Now, Gills Onions owns its own fields, as I understand it, and so can control more readily the inputs and the labor practices and things that go into the production of those onions. But Stonyfield and Mount Olive Pickles have to contract with others to, whether it's providing the banana puree, providing the cucumbers, providing the milk. Are there contractual standards that you try to hold your business partners to, and how do you communicate those standards to them? What is the expectation that you have in choosing the other people with whom you do business?
For me?
Well, and for Mount Olive Pickles. Yeah.
Well, we don't own we started as a farm, that small farm in Wilton, New Hampshire. We now buy our milk from Organic Valley, the crop cooperative of organic growers around the country. That's 1,300 dairy farms all over the country. The average size farm is about 77 cows. Very, very complex supply chain, small growers, small holders. We buy fruits from all over the country, and in some cases around the world for different ingredients. And I would say that for us today, those are more focused. Those are the way we ensure that those growers and those suppliers are meeting our expectations is through relationships. We've had long-term relationships with these organic dairy producers and these organic fruit growers, and they understand us. We have certain expectations in our contracts with different fruit suppliers to suggest that they are meeting our expectations. But frankly, it's a newer part of our program to sort of push out some of the expectations that we have. Some of this track record that I was talking about all the costs that we've avoided in different aspects of our business. We've got to start communicating that more effectively and increasing expectations on some of those suppliers. So I would say for us, that piece of it is a work in progress. But I would say that in no case of any major supplier do we have any lack of understanding, because they know who they're supplying, they know who they're working with, they know what's at stake.
In the 25 years I've been at Mount Olive Pickle, the supply chain has changed dramatically. When I started with the company, we were lucky to be working 3 days a week in the wintertime at the plant. It was very seasonal. It was one shift. Today we're running 2 shifts year-round. We're packing green cucumbers every day. We actually, at one time, bought from a lot of little growers. Now we buy from contract with people who have buying stations or grading station collection points. So we get cucumbers this time of year out of Mexico. We start in April and May out of Florida. We move into Georgia. During the May and June season, we get cucumbers out of North Carolina. Then we move into Maryland, Ohio, Delaware. And Michigan is actually the #1 cucumber producing state in the United States. So cucumbers can be double cropped, so we come back into North Carolina in the fall. We, like Stonyfield, have also through time built really strong relationships. We have 3 folks that all they do is procurement, all they do is work on relationships with the growers. It's extremely regulated, pesticides they can use. The folks that are in our procurement department, they're working with the growers on drip irrigation, new methods, improving yields, and quality to the plant. At one point in time, we would buy a farmer's whole fields. Now, to keep our production running every day, 2 shifts, year-round, 6 days in the summer, 5 days in the winter, we demand a lot of cucumbers and a lot of certain sizes. So the relationships have become huge, and the partnerships have become more critical.
Now, when the introductory time, Wood was talking about the efforts that Stonyfield makes in communicating the mission of the company to the employees. And indeed, any company can't be truly sustainable unless they have buy-in from the people who are staffing that business. I'm curious as to what methods, Lisa and Nikki, what your companies do to communicate those goals and hold what kind of training and education you offer your employees to further those sustainability objectives.
That's a great question. That was one of my biggest challenges. Had a great idea for a recycling program. I launched it, really excited, and took everyone's trash cans away and said, this is what you're going to be doing. And they looked at me and the owner, and they're like, who is this chick? I mean, like, we're not. And, I even changed the toilet paper. I was trying to get rid of the paper towels. I was dumpster diving. And it failed greatly because nobody knew why I was doing it. I just came in and said, this is what we're doing. And so when we weren't getting the results we wanted, I had to go back and reevaluate how I talked to our employees. And a majority of our employees are Spanish speaking, so overcoming that obstacle. And so I held engagements and meetings with 200 people at a time. I had my speech to them translated in Spanish, and I gave it in Spanish, a very elementary level of Spanish, but I wanted to talk directly to them and told them what we were doing and why we were doing. And this is after we had made some dent in where we were going, and we translated that into the results and what it meant for them, what it meant for the company, and other sustainability initiatives that we were putting into place. And after we started engaging them and educating them the why and where we were going and how we're getting there, we now, like I said, when we started, like you would, we were taking 22 loads a month. We had our own tipping, our own trash recycling program, and so I knew what the tipping fees were, I knew how much we were paying, and now we're down to 4 times a month. The employees are now coming to me with ideas. It has increased the morale of our operation, and they get really excited. And so it's not just me as the sustainability dictator, as I was, telling them what they were going to do. It's everybody participating and being very proud of where they've come. So employee engagement, I highly recommend you telling them why, helping them understand the different recycling projects you're doing. And yeah, so it's been great for us. It was a challenge, but now it's working in our favor.
Similar to us, we wanted to engage the employees, and initially we have employee meetings twice a year. In upper management, they were behind us 100%. But to get it to the employee level on a more regular basis, we put up bulletin boards in the lunchroom, stressing our progress, how much we were generating in amounts and dollar amounts, in ton amounts and dollar amounts. And we put letters in the employees' paychecks describing what we were trying to do. And then the one thing I would add is that first, you have to have good data on where you've been and where you're going and what you're doing on a regular basis, so you keep this going in their thoughts. And then the other thing you do is you make it very simple. And for us, with employee input, they said, you know, if you put these different containers in these strategic points and you label them, this one gets glass, this one gets wood, this one gets strapping, this one gets cardboard, then it's very easy to handle. It's very easy for them to separate it. After you do it for a while, it becomes automatic.
And one last question from me before we open it up to the audience. The panel topic refers to the fact that there can be tremendous cost savings and profitability associated with the adoption of sustainability goals and measures within a company. And now that this has caught on both as a consumer model and other businesses are starting to recognize this, you know, I'm wondering, as a lawyer, there's not a legal definition for what constitutes sustainability as you communicate that to your consumers or to your employees or to your investors. And like with the concept of the term natural in terms of product labeling, you know, that doesn't really have any kind of definition and as a result has become quite diluted in the marketplace. Is there a concern that that same thing could happen with concepts of sustainability? And if so, how do you suggest other companies or address that concern, or how do you plan to address it within your respective companies?
I think there's a concern on two sides. One, that it isn't regulated and will become diluted like other words, but then there's a concern on the other side that it will become regulated. And I think that's one of the more positive. Each one of us has different challenges, and we understand our companies. And our push for a long period of time was the government regulations. And then for a period of time, the government regulations we could all meet. Then it became our buyers' regulations. And now that's kind of wavering a little bit. So going forward, I have serious mixed feelings myself on how much regulation that there should be, but at some point there needs to be an accountability. If the word becomes diluted, I don't know what other word would take its place.
For me, sustainability means developing your baselines and being able to validate your claims. Coming from a marketing background, I always like to talk about the warm and fuzzy, what sustainability brought to our operation. We've even branded our company now based on our sustainability successes. But to getting there and to be able to talk about it, people are so savvy today. Everybody's smart and they check up on you. And so being able to track it and validate it, and even having a third party come in. We're not sustainably certified, but we definitely have the proof the proof is in the pudding. We've got the proof by the numbers. And we also, I love to apply for awards because you really have to submit all that information and it has to be validated. So for me, that's another validation that we're not just tooting our own horns, but somebody else, and we're competing amongst other people. That really validates us as well. So sustainability is very diluted. I think the definition comes and has to include people, planet, and profit. I think, as I said earlier today, it's a fingerprint. Every company is going to have their own definition of sustainability, their own journey of getting there. It's not a turnkey operation, but we can all have successes, and we should all start talking about it, and it's educating the consumer.
I'm more concerned that that the consumer is not involved enough. less concerned about whether there's claims of greenwashing or whatever. I mean, I sort of feel like we're in a post-greenwashing world, frankly, where we need more companies talking about everything they are doing and the fact that they are committed to these kinds of issues. Frankly, it sort of gets under my skin when I think about companies who are more than happy to talk about, when asked, or when invited to conferences or whatever it is, are more than happy to talk about their sustainability activities, but would never go so far as to sort of engage consumers on what those activities actually mean and why those activities are designed to create value for the business, for the consumer, or whoever. So I feel like that. I feel like the reticence or the cautiousness that some companies have about communicating is sort of past its it's sort of past its it's past its time. We need to be having a deeper conversation. I think, unfortunately, when you look at market research, and I think it's probably true of pickles, it's probably true of onions. I can say that it's certainly true of yogurt. The number of consumers who are looking for companies that have demonstrated sustainability leadership and are using that information to make purchasing decisions is incredibly small. And this is something we should all be concerned about, because what's happening there is that you have a few good companies that are going to continue to stick to a mission, like we are, like anybody on this panel is going to say, but because other companies who are more risk averse are sort of seeing that it's not actually changing the dynamic in the marketplace, it's not actually giving companies like Stonyfield, the majority of market share, frankly, in our category. It's going to make some of those bigger players hold back on sort of deep engagement on some of these issues. And I think we should all be concerned about that, because right now the consumer is suggesting that they don't see enough benefit to them. They don't see enough personal benefit to them to align themselves in large numbers with companies that are demonstrating deep sustainability leadership. I think we have to be more ingenious, more imaginative as CPG companies, as yogurt makers or whatever category you happen to be in, to communicate why these activities help us continue to keep prices at the level we can, continue to help us keep people employed, continue to create other opportunities inside our business. So I sort of feel like, getting back to the original question, I sort of feel like I'd like to actually see more companies communicating about what they're doing on sustainability and letting an increasingly engaged consumer who becomes more and more savvy, as Nikki's saying, more and more savvy and more engaged, start to heavily scrutinize those claims and things that are coming out of companies. So it gets to a point where the companies themselves make crap claims, frankly, false claims at their detriment. I mean, I'd rather see them face the scrutiny from a consumer that is passionate and can ask real questions and can understand the impacts that these activities have on them, and will push those companies to do right, than to worry about whether the word doesn't mean something or this label doesn't mean something or whatever it is. So.
Well, moderator's prerogative here. So the question, or the point that you raised about articulating these benefits to the consumers and the values that to the consumers, so that you educate them about what they're doing and how that benefits the consumer, how that benefits the marketplace. What are some ideas that you have for how that could be done? I've looked at all of your websites. I think Nikki's Onions in particular does an extraordinary job of communicating that, and has a whole sustainability page with fact sheets and all sorts of great information. But there's got to be other tools than just posting something on your webpage. What are some other ways of educating consumers?
I've got the mic, so I look at our website, frankly, and I think it's got great information on it. If you want to dive in and learn everything about every decision we've ever made related to sustainability, you can get it all there, and we're proud of it. But I still believe that the number of people who are going to do that, who are going to go to our website before they go out and go to the grocery store, between the soccer practice and the school pickup and the school board meeting that night, the number of people that are actually going to go to a website and make sure they've read about why we made our packaging choices the way that we did is incredibly small. So I don't think we have it solved. And I think the challenge here is to get we've got to do some really creative, deep thinking from a marketing and communications perspective on marrying mission and message, so that it's simple and clean. So I don't have a perfect answer, but I think the default has been, good companies are putting all the information they possibly can on the website and hoping that it provides the validation or the foundation for credibility on these issues that allows us to go out and have conversations like this. But there's got to be something that's communicated at point of sale. But in order to do that, we've got to be able to get consumers to a place where they actually are understanding how they're going to benefit, how they and their families are going to benefit from these choices, how they'll benefit from organic agriculture, how they'll benefit from increased use of renewable energy or whatever it is, and then choose those companies. So it's an unanswered question.
From a supplier's point of view, the success that we've had in really a comprehensive marketing campaign and sharing all this information has been that now our buyers are wanting to share our story. So it's not us just sharing it, but we're helping green that supply chain. So McDonald's, for instance, has recognized us worldwide, and we, again, applied for an award for McDonald's. We won it, and we were, that's another way for us to share our story, is having somebody else pick it up. So that's been our success in marketing, and another tool for us.
Our company's been in business since 1926, and we are a very traditional company. When I have a taste panel at the plant, and I had 16 people on the taste panel, and when we counted up how many years of service to the company that represented, was almost 500. I've been with the company 25 years, my boss has been with the company 35 years, and her boss has been with the company 45 years. And when you look up sustainability, one of the definitions is endurance. And but then when you rate pickles on a happiness scale, they're very high. So it's a food that you don't have to buy. We're hoping that you want to buy it. And so if you go to our website, you will see Ollie and all kinds of fanciful caricatures and feely good kind of stuff. But I agree with Nikki also. We used to say we sold our jars one jar at a time, but we really don't anymore. The biggest grocery store retailers are Walmart, Kroger, and Costco. And we sell to them. So the partnerships that we develop with them, this is very critical, are important. And the stories that then they can pass on and the importance they put in becomes critical. So the picture has changed in how each of us do business and how we think and how we move our stories forward.
We'd like to open it up to the audience, and I see a hand over here.
Thank you so much. So I'd like you to expand a bit more on your method for prioritizing projects when, you were speaking of the short-term shareholder, perception versus long-term, maybe supply risk mitigation strategies. So how you go about that prioritization, and also, between projects, water versus energy versus waste.
And for the benefit of the podcast, I'm going to repeat the question. I'll do it succinctly, and you can tell me if I've missed it. So the question is, what is the method for prioritizing projects and deciding which to place first when you have a choice among different media to focus on?
I think the prioritization changes every year, depending on what pressures are on the business and sort of where we need to focus our efforts. If the bigger issues are supply chain related or they're customer related or whatever it happens to be, so that has an impact certainly. And from a senior management perspective, we're reviewing all the activities that are being proposed by individual functions in the business on an annual basis, and saying, what's going to be the resource requirements to sort of do the things we want to do, with an understanding, frankly, from a sustainability perspective, that there's a baseline of activities that are going to be going on all the time, but where the bigger projects that are going to require more resources and more energy have to be sort of embedded into sort of a larger conversation about overall company priorities. From an environmental perspective, though, when you get down to sort of the micro level, sort of how we keep that baseline going. I mentioned our mission action program. One of the things that I've done in the last couple of years is take 4 of those teams that I mentioned and bring them into a single sort of management team, a steering committee of folks that meet actually every week, and we have a cross-functional team of strategists and technical folks in the business who work together on an annual work plan, a quarterly work plan, and say, what are the metrics that are not going in our direction right now, for example? Where do we need to be focusing our efforts? And it may be on a particular particular resource use or a certain loss or whatever it happens to be. And it becomes very clear to us sort of through that kind of discussion sort of where the focus of the business needs to be. We also, we have a company scorecard, and there's 3 environmental metrics that are part of it, that are KPIs that are part of that scorecard that really help our business understand how we're doing overall. And if any of those particular KPIs is going in the wrong direction in a month or a period of time, it elevates the issue and makes it more of a company priority quickly.
And building upon what Wood said, regulatory demands too help us make those decisions. So water and fertilizer, nitrate contamination in our water. So we're looking closely at those resources. Water is a big issue in California in some of our growing regions. So to build upon what he said, regulatory mandates help push us in the right direction.
We generate a lot of data, collect a lot of data, and when we analyze it, I think the first thing we do is we work on the projects that are the easiest and the shortest in duration. And then some of our projects take years and years. And it's been interesting because some of our best projects, like Nikki mentioned this morning, are partnerships we have with universities and academia. Long-term projects looking at drastically changing, radically changing things that we've done for years and years. So at any one time, we have a lot of projects that are going on. Water was our first. Salt reduction has taken a lot of our time and is going to take a lot of our time going forward, and then energy reduction through time is going to be a top priority for us.
Any questions? Over here, there was the woman in the striped shirt. Yes.
So it seems like you guys have all been part of pioneering sustainability within your companies, and I'm wondering, once the low-hanging fruit has been picked, and sustainability is more integrated into the mindset of your employees, how is the structure going to change? Are some of your teams going to be put out of work? Like, what do you see sustainability going forward?
So to summarize, the question is, what does sustainability look like for your companies moving forward? Now that you've perhaps tackled the easy part of it, you've incorporated the concept of sustainability into your business mission, what's next?
I work on sustainability, but I also do all the recipes for Moeller Pickle Company. I look on wastewater on a daily basis and water. So each one of us has many hats. So the person who's working on energy is over the maintenance department. There's always changes going on. So I don't think in our company anybody will ever be out of work. And through our projects, I hope we generate more work. So.
For us, it's always about building innovation, and I wish there was an end in sight, but there's not. There's always another job to be done. So it's just reinvesting in where we're saving, reinvesting in new projects on how to save money. There's always new ideas coming up. Now we're focusing on the farm. So nobody's been put out of a job, and we keep growing our operation, which has been great. And my sustainability department has grown from 1 to 3. So I now have 2 master's students almost telling me what to do because they're so smart. But so it's growing because they find value in it and more savings. There's always something to be saved.
I was going to say the same thing. I think innovation follows integration. Once you've got a well-oiled organization where everybody embraces the concept, then you can start to do the really interesting things. We have a 100% renewable energy goal at our company. It's 2017, which seems awfully close to me. Keeps me awake at night. But it's that kind of aspirational goal that we set in our organization that drives us toward a day-to-day kind of solutions orientation. Beyond sort of innovation, I think we've already talked about supply chain. I mean, once you've got your own house in order, you can then go out and begin to expect more from more from the community of businesses and people that feed into your company. So that's an important piece of it. And then I also feel like, and I mentioned this in the context of our Costa Rica project, I do think that there is a point in time where once we do, and we're not anywhere close to this as a marketplace right now, once we do have our environmental impacts under control, I think you're going to see more and more companies that are focused on how they're building social impact with their projects. So really creating sort of trying to figure out ways to add value, add real benefit to communities where they get their supplies and materials. So that's certainly a driver for us in this project that I mentioned. So I think that's something.
And then maroon sweater.
To go along with Heidi's question, I kind of wanted to just hear more about support of these admirable but lofty sustainability goals within the larger companies that you're with. I think we've heard from Nikki that you added on 2 grad students to your department. So I'm just curious, how that has helped in moving these goals forward. So to summarize, what kind of support you could see helping you achieve these goals?
For the podcast, what additional types of support would you need institutionally to continue moving along this pathway?
More bodies would be great. More people to help us. I think we need to be better as sustainability professionals in using the finance teams in our companies to make the case or to help bolster the value of this kind of work. I mean, I think sometimes I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to sell myself short, so don't let me drag you down with me. But I think sometimes I'm focused on communicating just very immediate sort of cost benefits, very immediate opportunities to avoid costs in the business by virtue of various activities that we might do. And I think there need to be other ways that we think about the value to our businesses over time by virtue of some of these activities. I'm pretty impressed by what Pluma's done with their environmental P&L, which is an attempt to try to measure, if you will, the amount of value added to the environment versus what the company actually takes away, what the company actually uses or extracts from the environment, as a nominal measurement for how restorative they are as a business. I think we have to be more savvy about using our finance colleagues.
I agree completely with Wood, and then also it's great to work with academia. More collaboration with the universities, the students. You guys have so much passion, and you've got your hands at the newest and latest and greatest technology and information that's coming out of there. So I always look to universities to help us translate what we're doing and build upon what we're doing. So that's a great partnership for both the students and for the business.
I agree, and then the other one I think is participation, strong participation of each of us in trade associations. The pickle plants come together under an umbrella of Pickle Packers International. We're very open with information on a lot of arenas. We don't share recipes, but sustainability is one that in safety, food safety, are 2 categories that we cover well. And this is good for 2 reasons. One, there tends to be big players in any arena, but there tends to be a need for support on people coming up in the industry, small family operations that maybe couldn't acquire this information any other way, but that we would like to help to strengthen the categories.
Over here.
I have a question. First of all, I really appreciate hearing from each of the companies, and I understand one isn't organic and the other 2 are not, so that kind of puts you at a different point in maybe your perspectives on sustainability. But I guess the question is that where does sustainability begin in the company consciousness? I think we've heard from Wood sort of the understanding that the imprint is largest at the producer end. rather than the company. And so while it's great that each of the companies are taking those company measures to reduce, to recycling, to all those things and reduce waste at the company level, I think that I don't know what the recognition is at the producing end, what that imprint is, and what that means in terms of, sustainability for the rest of them. Because things like exploitation also endure. But I don't think sustainability shouldn't be reduced to, it lasts a long time. So I'm just wondering at what point where does it begin in the company consciousness?
So the question for those listening in online is where within the company's consciousness does sustainability actually originate? Is it just with the company's own manufacturing process, or is it someplace else along the supply chain, looking at the production end, inputs, things like that?
And I started the talk with my grandmother in Nebraska, being born in a sod house, and she saved the wax paper out of Rice Krispie boxes because she knew what it was like to not have. And I think going forward, as these companies grow, we require a lot of resources. And there's an understanding that we require these resources, that we also have an accountability to manage them well. And if we don't manage them well, it will be seen by the people that we sell to in one form or another. So where does it begin? It begins with a realization that we can't do business like we did years ago, that there's no way that you can mismanage a company and survive anymore. But going forward, how does a company become stronger in sustainability, one company than another company? I think you have to have a group of people that does have passion, that does recognize how to start groups. But then, as importantly, we can talk about all these projects that have done well, but there's as many projects that we've started that have had challenges. And so it's always looking internally at your groups and figuring out where your strengths and where your weaknesses are. And somebody can have a great vision and a tremendous amount of passion, but if they don't have the science to carry it out, or in my case, if they maybe don't have the ability to communicate it to the right people, then you have to, through time, understand the partnership that you have to develop to make things go forward.
We're a farming operation, so sustainability has always been incorporated into the DNA of the company, because we have to increase our yields, we have to grow to be able to stay competitive and sell produce at a lower price. So while all the resources around us are increasing, we still have to keep producing the same amount or more. And we just never talked about it. And we never formalized it until I came to the company and recognized all the great things that they were doing and thought it was a great story to tell. For us, sustainability starts with a good business case and translates into the environmental benefits, and that's how we like to tell that story and share it.
I think you already said that you feel like you'd heard from me, but I feel like our perspective on sustainability is we're focused on our whole sphere of influence. I mean, we have to make inroads from the production at production on farm all the way to the consumer. And for us, if we haven't found solutions to all those different points in the value chain, we're not done. So.
Over here.
So, Nikki talked a little bit about not a failure, but a challenge that she had in getting something up and off the ground. And Lisa, you mentioned it a little bit as well. Can you guys talk about something that just absolutely bombed? Or if you don't want to talk about something that bombed, or if you don't have anything that bombed, do you have any stories about how you were able to incorporate sustainability in a way that would be thought of as less conventional, like it was able to be incorporated somewhere else as opposed to a sustainability project? So choose your administrator.
I mean, I'll sort of talk around the question a little bit. I mean, I think one of the problems that we've had is that we shoot for the moon. Like we think, oh man, we have this renewable energy goal, and we need to build the Cadillac combined heat and power facility at our plant. We went into a deep investigation of wood gasification actually as a renewable energy source in our facility. And really, I mean, we're so enthusiastic about it, believed in it deeply, knew it was where we wanted to go, knew it was going to help us meet the goal. But I mean, the price tag was insane. And so there's nothing sort of crueler, frankly, than getting so enthusiastic about a project and then finding that you're going forward with a price tag that the company's just saying, there's absolutely no way this year, next year, or the year after that, that's actually going to get done. I will say that failure, though, makes you sick. It gives you every opportunity to step back and say, there's got to be some other way to get this done. So we're spinning on that right now, actually. So it's a good failure.
I can't remember if I talked about it earlier this morning, but one of the biggest failures for me was trying to get all of the data collection from all 3 growing regions, and I had about 16 different resources we were trying to track and create these baselines. And farmers are very traditional. They're not electronically hooked up. They keep things on journals, they keep things on pads of paper, and their office is their truck, their cab of their truck. And so their filing system is a little bit challenging when you're trying to collect all this data and the information. And I tried to go back a year and collect the data, and while they were in their current year of farming, and farmers are busy planting, harvesting, they don't want to look back. That's too much time. And so I pissed everybody off, and they would not pick up my phone calls. But what we learned is that we have to figure out a data system to streamline our data collection so that it's all readily available, so that it's easy for them to look back and really catalog the successes, the failures they've had with their water and fertilizer. And then we reduced the amount of resources that we were trying to track and what really affected our growing region. And instead of all 3 growing regions, we picked the biggest and the one that I am, that's easily accessible to. So with that, then we could kind of grow that operation. So as much of a failure as it was a huge learning experience on how to move forward.
I don't know that we've necessarily had any failures. We've had several that we've had to modify, but I think the challenge would be some of them are very long-term, and to stay passionate about a project and stay focused and to keep everybody else focused on something for a long period of time sometimes can be difficult. We're working on a project right now to reduce salt at the plant, and we're taking information that was really mastered at NC State in the Food Science Department with the USDA Agricultural Research Service, and looking at doing fermentations a different way. And when I said I had 16 panelists that had about 500 years of experience, a lot of people at the plant are used to doing something a certain way for a long period of time. So to implement drastic changes in something that's new to the industry and new to a company, it can be just a long journey, and a journey that changes through time, and a journey that you have to stay extremely focused on. So.
Yes, sir.
How is industry doing at meeting your needs as a consumer of sustainable support? In other words, when there are things that go beyond your own frame of expertise, are you satisfied that industry is providing you with solutions that you can utilize, or is there a gap?
I'm not sure that I 100% understand the question, but if I don't answer it, let me know. I think right now I am the most optimistic I have been in my life, and I'm 52 years old. I think with technology, with the ability to understand things so much better, with the globalization, with the increased ability to connect ideas and people, I think the concerns now are less than they've ever been to being able to either gather information or make decisions or connect to the people that you need to connect with to have things going forward. Did that answer?
Well, what I'm trying to get at is, it seems like you guys are all trying to figure this out on your own. And I'm wondering what you would ask industry to do to meet you closer to halfway. Other businesses.
Right. So for the ag industry, we are working on collaborating, and you know, the ag industry is very proprietary. We like to keep our data to ourselves. And for the most part, we're able to share. The owners of the company allow me to share the successes and the failures and the challenges that we have. Industry collaborations like the United Fresh Association that we belong to, the Produce Marketing Association, they are starting to develop tools for the industry to move this forward, taking a practice-based approach first and then getting into the metrics. So we do have the support of the industry. It's just trying to, with the collaboration, it's just some people are a little slow coming to the table, but we're getting there. Did that answer your question?
Part of it.
Okay.
What about the green industry though? I mean, it took you 2 years, 10 years you said to get that fuel cell.
Right. Well, I think that's a part of the company. They've always been an adopted innovative technology. And if you want to find it, this is a time for companies to think outside the box and not wait for technology to be developed. It's not always best being the first because you have no one to ask when things go wrong. I mean, we still have our hiccups with our program, with the flow battery, with the fuel cells, with the digester, and we have to figure out how to solve them. But that's bringing a lot of people to the table and discussing it. So we've been able to look within. We can't expect nobody else processes onions like we do, so we can expect the industry to come up with a new technology. But what we have done is provided a viable pathway for other companies to look at a way to deal with their waste stream differently. Even though we don't have a turnkey operation, somebody else can't go do the same thing. They don't process year-round. They don't have the same feedstock, but the idea and the concept of dealing with your waste stream differently, they come to us and we give them a tour.
We like to do it ourselves, but I would say that the biggest issue for us is that we just can't keep consultants on who don't necessarily get us to a place where we can see a return on that investment in a fairly short amount of time, and so I would say that the thing we don't feel like we get enough from the green industry is deeper insight into creative financing opportunities, because we're literally every single project trying to figure out how we can bootstrap it, and I know that's not sustainable. I know that's not the way to get some of the things done that we feel like we need to get done. We're producing Greek yogurt at our facility for the first time this year. For those of you who don't know, Greek yogurt takes 3 times as much milk, actually 5 times as much milk, because it takes 3 times as much milk into the plant. And then for the current sort of best practice on getting rid of the whey that's skimmed off of the milk after it's been strained 3 times, is to put it back on trucks and haul it back out to farms and feed it to pigs or spread it on land. Incredible. 5 truckloads for every 1 that it takes to sort of make that same yogurt in a sort of a traditional way. So that whey is a huge challenge. And we have spent an enormous amount of time trying to investigate the best options that we can find to marry, frankly, our renewable energy goal, which I told you keeps me awake at night, with this other problem that keeps me awake at night, that I want to make sure we're doing something that's true to mission long term with that material. We've spent a huge amount of time researching every possible direction we could take with that material, and have some ideas, some near-term opportunities, but in terms of the bigger picture, the price tag is tripping us up over and over and over again. And so I think one of the biggest challenges in sort of getting to this innovation phase in sustainability, getting back to your point about what do you do after integration, is how we pay for it, how we get it done. Where are we going to find the resources, the financial resources to bring all of these goals? I share your degree of hopefulness. I really do. I think There's a lot of great thinking going on out there, but we're going to get tripped up here as we continue to sort of perseverate on where we're going to find the money in a marketplace that's frankly challenged in a lot of different categories. You know, the economy's not growing the way that it was. The dollars, as far as I'm concerned, just don't seem as readily available to sort of build these kinds of projects as they might have once felt. I know that's not intellectually true. Like, I know that's not true, but I just don't know where. I don't always know where to turn.
Our permitting process. The permitting process was very difficult, being the first of its kind, and trying to educate the city, trying to educate our lenders was really hard, especially since it had never been done, and we didn't know what we were doing really. We just we took a leap of faith. We had to solve a problem. We were pushed into a corner, and so we were innovative, and luckily for us, it paid off. We did receive funding through California Energy Commission, a grant. We also received, only after it was proven, from Self-Generation Incentive Program and from the California Resource Recovery Act. So we got a substantial amount of incentives, but after it was paid for. So. But the permitting process is very, very difficult.
Well, I think we have run out of time for the rest of the discussion. I know there were lots of other questions. I had another page full myself. So unfortunately, our time together has ended, but thank you very much for coming, and thanks to each of the panelists.